Man, good evening. How's everybody doing? Here we go. How's it going? Uh, hey, it is Wednesday the 25th. It is almost March. March will be here next week. Yes, March will be here next week. I am so happy. So happy. Getting ready to get my spring on, whether March likes it or not. All I need is for it to hit the 50s and 60s and stay there. Man, that's all I need. That's all I need. Well, hey, how you doing, Carmen? How's it going? How are you today? I'm doing pretty good myself. I am doing pretty good. Um, Still in good spirits. It was 70. Boy, you sure know how to stick the knife in, don't you? You know how to stick the knife in, Jack. Wow. That's okay. One of these days it'll be 70 here. One of these days. Crazy. One of these days. Um, Boy, I tell you what, where to start today? Where to start today? I do not know where to start today. Oh, did I miss one? Yeah, I guess I did. Don't know. It's so much going on, that I hear about the State of the Union last night. I watched the State of the Union last night. I watched that train wreck, and that's what it was, a train wreck. Now, I was torn about whether or not the Democrats should have even showed up. I was torn about that. If you don't show up, you know, does that say does that say you let the man run you out of your own house? But if you do show up, this guy gets to, you know, he gets to somehow work you into the act. And that's what he did last night. For those that showed up, for those Democrats that showed up for it, he worked them into the act. He asked a question, and, you know, he asked a question that he knew they wasn't going to stand up. Notice he didn't say anything about Jesse Jackson, but something about Charlie Kirk. Well, that is not a surprise. That's not a surprise at all. I mean, he wasn't thinking about Jesse Jackson. I don't expect him to have ever been thinking about anybody. Uh, while that may have been a bit hurtful, you know, I understand that was hurtful. But let me tell you what's hurtful. You know, let me tell you what's hurtful. They asked the people, you know, um, the family and the organization, Rainbow Push, asked if Jesse Jackson could lie in state at the Capitol. And Mike Johnson said no. Now that was hurtful as far as I'm concerned. Mike Johnson said no to their request to allow Jesse Jackson to lie in state at the Capitol. Now, that was jacked up as far as I'm concerned. Well, the reason is because what you just said. They disrespectful and racist. They disrespectful and racist. Remember all the shit they did for Charlie Kirk? They went out of their way for Charlie Kirk. I mean, they flew Miss Kirk around in Air Force One and all that. I mean, hey, but Jesse Jackson did not rate that. So, that's just another one of those things that's one of them things. It's another one of them things that we could just say, you know, is what it is. Yeah, she was there last night. Yeah. And of course, he had to, they had to put the camera on her. And, and what gets me is she has been doing everything that I would not expect a grieving widow to be doing. She's been doing everything that a grieving widow wouldn't be doing. Okay? So, she had to be there last night as well as, any other props that he wanted there. And I tell you who I feel bad about is the men's hockey team. The men's Olympic hockey team, they're falling for it hook, line, and sinker. He's using them like nobody's business. And they don't mind. They're in the limelight. They're in the limelight. They are. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Um, but I hate he got the opportunity to use the Democrats as a prop too. He got a chance to use the Democrats as a prop, asking a loaded question and trying to find out if they would stand up when he asked this question. And he knew they wouldn't stand up. And I'm pretty sure you heard the question that, you know, is it the number one job of the United States government to protect US citizens and not illegal aliens? Well, when you put in not illegal aliens on there or illegal immigrants, well, that messed up the whole question because it's the United States government's job to protect illegals too, you know. And see, here's the thing about using the word illegal. And I understand people will say, well, they're here illegally. And yes, that's technically correct. But when you use the word illegal, you you make it like a felony. You make it sound like they're felons when you use the word illegal. When you cross the border illegally, that is a civil offense. That is not a felony. Okay? That is not a felony. Hey, Lisa, what's happening? Yes, the whole thing was horrific. The whole thing was a sham. I mean, it was, as usual, it was an hour and 48 minutes, hour and 47 minutes of lying. The man was lying about every single thing he talked about. Everything he said was a lie. And this is to be expected. This is to be expected. I don't know what to tell you. The dude is a pathological liar. A pathological liar. That's what he is. He lied for almost 2 hours. Trump should be in good company. Uh, oh, well. Yeah. You know what? That's a good point. But coming across the border is not a felony. That's my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. Coming across the border without paperwork is a civil offense. It is something you go to court for, and they figure it out, and you either get to stay or you get to leave. It is not a felony. You don't they don't throw you in prison. You're not imprisoned for crossing the border illegally. Okay? That's not a prison offense. And this guy seems to want to throw people in prisons. And understand why they want to throw people in prisons. Because his buddies are building these detention centers in practically every state. They're building these super detention centers all over the country, and they're going to need people to go in them. And this is the point. The cruelty is the point. The cruelty is the point. This is why they keep using the word illegal. Okay? This is why they keep using that word illegal. That big old they're illegal thing. So, all right. Oh, I forgot. Man, I done got to talking. I forgot. Hey, we got to have a dose of the internet, okay? We got to have a dose of the internet. So, the internet never loses. I always say the internet wins every time. Check this out. Hey, what happens when your mama find out you a freak? Check this out.
What you know?
It was something I cooked last night.
That's That's good.
Thank you.
You welcome. Say, why that little bitch from the club last night gonna tell me eat her ass? Nigga, I sucked the fart out that bitch booty. Nigga, I'm talking about one leg in the air, lips on cheeks, sucking the shit out that booty. Nigga, you know how I do. Nigga talking about she gonna tell her friends. I bet you tell your friends. I'm gonna eat their ass too, nigga.
Nigga, from now on, you get one fork and one spoon with your nasty booty eating ass.
Boy, I tell you what, the internet never loses. Social media is crazy. All right, so moving right along from that disaster last night. I can imagine, boy. Mom was like, "What?" But the funny thing, when Mom heard what he said, she laughed first, and then she realized what he was saying. It was like, I ain't finna use this spoon. This food just got through using. This food just ate out my plate. Anyway. All right, moving along. I'm going to try and go over a few things this evening. One, do y'all remember Eileen Cannon? Judge Eileen Cannon. Judge Eileen Cannon was the judge that was running interference for Trump when he had been charged with stealing the documents down in Florida. She was the judge that kept throwing things in the way of Jack Smith trying to put his case on. And, well, she did something the other day that she blocked the records from coming out, the records of that case from coming out. She blocked them permanently. Let's check it out.
Breaking news on President Trump's classified documents case. Judge Aileen Cannon has permanently blocked the release of former special counsel Jack Smith's report on the investigation that had been scheduled for release tomorrow. Let's bring in MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin. Lisa, tell us more about this ruling. What's the judge's reasoning?
The judge has a bunch of different reasons, Anna, but you'll recall that this case was dismissed in July of 2024 when Judge Cannon found something that no court had ever found before, that essentially the special counsel was unlawfully appointed and had been unlawfully appropriated money by Congress. And on her reasoning, that meant that the indictment against then former President Trump and 2 of his personal aides at Mar-a-Lago had to be dismissed. Flash forward to where we are now. She had entered an order saying that volume 2 of the special counsel's report could not be released until at least today, while there was still an outstanding question of whether the Department of Justice was going to appeal her dismissal of the indictment as to those 2 aides. That went away. This Department of Justice decided they didn't want to prosecute Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. But nonetheless, she is saying in her reasoning today that there could be manifest injustice because of the release of the report, not the least of which is basically casting aspersions on the criminality of Mr. Nauta and de Oliveira when no jury has ever been called to pass judgment on them, Anna.
So what does this mean then? Does it effectively shut down or close the door on the public ever seeing what was in this volume 2 report?
Yes and no. One of the things that Judge Cannon notes is that no party to the actual proceeding contested her ruling today, meaning both the Department of Justice and anyone affected by the indictment. They were all in unanimity that the report should not be released. However, there are 2 public interest groups, American Oversight and a First Amendment Institute, that have tried to intervene in this case. She has said they do not have the right to intervene, but they are appealing that ruling. If the 11th Circuit, that's the Federal Court of Appeals that oversees her, decides that they do have a stake in what's going on here, all bets are off on whether this order today ultimately could be reversed. Anna?
Lisa Rubin, thank you.
Okay, let's go over this. That heifer dismissed the case in the first place under some bogus grounds. On some bogus grounds, some foul grounds, she dismissed the case. And now she's making sure nobody ever sees records of the case. The records won't see light of day because the Justice Department decided not to prosecute the 2 assistants that helped him hide the records. Now, isn't that interesting that they chose the Justice Department? Pam Bondi, Kash Patel declined to prosecute the accomplices in the documents case, which allowed her to seal the records forever. I tell you what, this one chick that Trump, when he installed her, he nominated her. He nominated her, got her on the bench, and boy, is she paying off in spades, Jack. She is paying off. No one's fighting her decision. Yes, there are 2 groups. There are 2 groups fighting that have an appeal to the appellate court in that circuit. There are 2 groups fighting that. And she denied them their request to intervene and see the records. She denied them, saying they have no standing in the case. Well, the appellate court has to hear it, and maybe the appellate court may overturn it, maybe not. But there are 2 groups that are trying to get those records. So I just thought those were some interesting tidbits. Excuse me a second. And I thought that it was interesting that she is still paying off. After all this time, she is still paying off. I mean, this guy got his money worth when he put her on the bench. He got his money worth out of her. It's incredible. It's incredible. Monday, I said we're going to talk about tariffs tonight, and we are going to get to tariffs tonight because I really want to explain some stuff about the tariffs, why the tariffs are so important, why Trump is hell-bent on tariffs. There's a reason for that. There's a reason, and we're going to get to it. So that was Eileen Cannon. That's her shenanigans that she's up to. In the House of Representatives, Representative Thomas Massie out of Kentucky, I believe. Kentucky? Yeah, Kentucky. He was pissed because they're still holding names. And one of the things, let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see if I can pull this one up. What was that? Let's see. I think it was. Give me a second. Let me look this up right quick. Yeah, here we go. It has come to everyone's attention that it's been found out that there are files directly naming Trump as a predator. There's files directly naming Trump as assaulting a 13-year-old girl. And these files, it has just been found out, happen to be missing out of the files that they released. Up to now, there were thought to have been no actual files that literally name him as a predator. But as it turns out, there was a young lady who was 13 at the time. Well, I'll let them explain it. Check it out.
PR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime. For more on that and the surrounding fallout, we're joined now by Julie K. Brown, investigative reporter for the Miami Herald, whose reporting helped expose much of the Epstein network. Julie, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
I want to start with this NPR reporting that the Justice Department withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor, which we should say the White House denies. What stands out to you about it?
Well, I think what stands out is that we don't have the reports, even though we know they exist. This stems from an interview that they conducted that came out of a tip to the FBI about this woman who has said that when she was 13, that she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. Now, one of her interviews is contained in the Epstein files, although it is heavily redacted, so it's hard to know exactly what she told the FBI. But as a result of that, we were able to see some of the report numbers and the Bates stamps on it. And an independent journalist, actually named Roger Sollenberger, was the person that found out that it compared that number to the documents that the Southern District of New York prosecutors gave to Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers as part of her criminal case.
You broke this story 8 years ago with your investigative reporting. With the benefit of time and hindsight, what do you see more clearly now about how power insulated Jeffrey Epstein, and how much of that protective structure still exists?
Well, I think it shows that it absolutely does exist. I mean, the fact that we aren't getting the full picture, that these files are so heavily redacted, that there are names of men in these files that have been redacted, yet some of these victims' names have not been redacted from the files. It shows that this case is still an example of how there are two systems of justice in this country, one for people who have money and power and one for people who don't.
So now we know that there are files that actually accuse Trump of being a pedophile. Okay. Now we know that there are actually accusations against him directly. Now, up to now, it's been said, well, there hasn't been any actual allegations that he participated in anything. Well, now we know there are, okay, accusals. There are accusations that he participated in this kind of thing. Here is Thomas Massie, who, I got to take my hat off to the Republican. He is gnawing on this like a pit bull, and he does not intend to let it go. Here is Thomas Massie on the House floor.
From Kentucky, Mr. Massie, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Congress created the Department of Justice. Congress funds the Department of Justice, and Congress is responsible for the oversight of the Department of Justice. When will we see justice? I'll tell you what I've not seen. I've not seen any arrests from the revelations in the Epstein files, over 3 million documents describing horrible things, describing unspeakable things, so much of it redacted. Over 24 people have resigned, CEOs, members of government worldwide. But I haven't seen any arrests or investigations here in the United States from this Department of Justice. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, who has since been stripped of his royal titles due to his affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, has been arrested. Peter Mandelson, who previously served as UK's ambassador to the United States, resigned in disgrace from United Kingdom's House of Lords and the Labour Party, and he's been arrested. Former Prime Minister of Norway, Torbjørn Jagland, has been charged. But we don't see any charges, arrests, or investigations in the United States. What do we see? We see our FBI director celebrating in the locker room at the Olympics overseas. It's fine to be proud of this country, but we should be proud of this country because we have a system of justice that works. And yet we do not. Who are the men that should be investigated? I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner, why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents in a child sex trafficking case and then tell him, according to him, that they had no questions for him? Why is that? Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the DOJ and the FBI to disclose to us their internal memos and emails about how they made those decisions, whether to prosecute or not prosecute. Yet they have not delivered those memos. And we still don't have the memos and documents and emails from 2008 to explain why Jeffrey Epstein was given such a light sentence in what would have been an open and shut case of child sex trafficking, which allowed him to go back and recommit these terrible crimes, create hundreds of more victims, and ensnare so many other people in his conspiracy. Where are those documents that describe those decisions? We need justice. We want the Department of Justice to get to work, and that's what they need to do now.
Okay. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. You see, here's the thing. There's going to have to be a judge who is going to have to get some marshals to go in and confiscate some evidence. Now, the problem with that is all of the policing, the law enforcement arm of the government is under the direction of the two major criminals here, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They're in charge of the policing forces for the government. But there's going to have to be a judge that's got the balls, that's got balls big enough to find some guys that are willing to go in and confiscate some evidence, or, and I don't know why this has not happened yet, why there hasn't been a brave soul inside the system that could leak the documents unredacted. Why isn't there a brave soul somewhere in there that has seen this stuff, made copies, and leaked it all? You know, the only thing I could think of on that, in that case, is anybody on the inside that's seen the stuff, the investigators, had been approached, you know, with an offer they couldn't refuse. That's the only thing that makes sense about why nobody has ever leaked any of this stuff. Why has no one leaked anything? And I will never understand that. Only thing that makes sense is the people who've seen it have been given the offer they can't refuse. But there's going to have to be some strong-willed judge to step in, because it is literally the law that they hand this stuff over. They are breaking the law by not handing it over. And apparently, we see what they care about breaking the law. You know, what happens when the police is breaking the law? Well, we see what happens when the police is breaking the law. We see what happens. You get what we got. You get what we got. I tell you what. I wish there was somebody on the inside with some balls. Because they are literally showing the rest of the world. They're showing the rest of the world that they will protect all of these criminals around the world. Now, in other places, they getting arrested. Hey, today, Larry Summers, I don't know if you know who that is. Larry Summers, a esteemed economist who found a nice gig at Harvard, I believe it was, had to resign because he was one of the Epstein crew. Bill Gates, he went in front of his employees at Microsoft. He went in front of the employees and owned up. Came right out. I apologize. I was with Epstein. I had affairs. I was getting busy on Epstein Island. Came out today and admitted it. There needs to be some people hauled in and said, hey, Bill, what did you see when you was there? Not this, yeah, I admitted it. Okay, sorry. And walk away. Larry Summers, I resigned. Okay, I'm going to get out of here, okay? I'll see y'all later. And cut out. These people need to be investigated. The rest of the world is looking at the United States saying, wow, they protect the pedophiles just like they do in Israel. And speaking of Israel, one of the main reasons why a lot of this ain't coming out is because of Israel. They are protecting his ties to Israel. Because it is a well-known fact that Israel will hide you if you are a criminal. Israel has a practice of hiding criminals. That is their claim to fame. If you're a criminal, especially a pedophile, if you can make it to Israel, we'll hide you. That's crazy. That is crazy as all get out. And I tell you what, there are people who have been talking about this kind of stuff for years. And you hear some of this stuff and you think, that can't be it. That's just, that's conspiracy theory stuff. It's conspiracy theory stuff. And as it turns out, all of this shit some of these people have been talking about is true. Tell you what, if you want a treat, there's a podcast on YouTube. A young dude by the name of Julian Dorey, Dorey, I believe. Julian Dorey has a show. And a lot of times there's an ex-CIA guy named John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou. And he is an ex-CIA guy. And he explains a lot of this stuff. Yes, Israel. Hey, check this out. It's turning out that Israel is at the bottom of so much that's going on in America. And we're going to start getting into that maybe next Monday. But I'm going to let you in on one little tidbit right now. In this country right now, across this country, there's like 20 or 30 states that have taken an Israel loyalty oath, an oath of loyalty to Israel. The states, the actual states. I looked it up today. Indiana. And in Indiana, here, hold on for a second. In Indiana, back in, I believe it was back in 1917, the Indiana House of Representatives unanimously approved a bill banning state dealings. Okay, if you got a business and you're trying to do business with the state of Indiana, they put in a law that says the state of Indiana will not do business with you, cannot do business with you, if you refuse to do business with Israel. If you have a business in the state of Indiana, they have pledged by law that if your business, if you boycott Israel, the state of Indiana will boycott you. And there's 20, 26, 25, 30 states that have adopted the same law, an oath of loyalty to Israel. Israel is literally, I used to think all this stuff about the Jews was just conspiracy stuff, about the Jews running this and the Jews running that. I used to think all of this was just conspiracy stuff. And literally everything that's coming out of the Epstein files right now is literally pointing to Israel. Killings that went on around the world, pointing to Israel. What's going on in Gaza? They literally plan to do this stuff that they're doing in Gaza right now. Killing all of them people was the actual plan the whole time. And who would have thought it? I always thought, the Jews is getting a bad deal. It's the Jews, hey, they just the Jews. Do they own a lot of stuff like banks and movie companies? Yeah, they do. But they are at the foundation to so much going on here in America. Netanyahu was at the White House or the Capitol or Mar-a-Lago 7 times last year. 7 times. Why is Netanyahu here 7 times in a year? Hey, what's up, James? Why is Netanyahu here 7 times in a year? Why are we giving $8 to $20 billion a year to Israel? What are we doing that for? 8 to 20 billion every year. Of your tax dollars. And Israel has free health care, free education, and free housing. We can't afford that here, can we? We don't have the money to do that for Americans. But when you're getting a quick free 8 to 20 billion every year, you got money to do certain shit, huh? And what, as it turns out, half of the money they get, they spend lobbying around the United States. So that's 4 to 10 billion every year. They spend that around the United States buying politicians. They have literally gotten down to city mayors. They have gotten down to buying city mayors in America. We'll get into that another time, but because there's so much about that going on, it is crazy. All of this stuff that's coming out is literally proving all of that conspiracy shit in the past was true. Like, what? Everything I found out, it turns out all that stuff was true. Anyway, we're going to get into that some next week. Right now, let's talk about the tariffs for a few minutes before it gets too late. Everybody really wants to know what is with Trump and these tariffs. What is with Trump and these tariffs? Why is he hell-bent on having these tariffs no matter what? No matter what the law is, we're going to do tariffs. And as it turns out, there's a nifty little scheme, and I'll let social media explain it to you, because social media, I love the way social media explains stuff. Check it out.
You know, I'm starting to think this whole tariff thing was just a giveaway to corporations from the get-go, because the Supreme Court just overruled Trump's tariffs, if you didn't know. And I see all these people on the left like excited that, you know, the Supreme Court actually sided with the people and all this. But what no one's ever talking about is the fact that the corporations passed all the costs of tariffs onto you. You and me paid all of those tariffs. And now the federal government is going to refund the tariffs to the corporations. Because the corporations had to pay the tariffs to the government. That's who the government got the money from. But then those same corporations raised the prices on all of the goods that we buy to pay for those tariffs. So you, me, and every other American buying things paid these tariffs. And now the federal government is going to refund billions and billions of dollars to the corporations after we paid those tariffs. This whole thing is just a scam to give corporations billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money. That's all that happened. We just got totally screwed. And I see.
Check this out. Understand. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. The corporations paid the tariffs to the government and then raised the price of shit, so we paid the tariffs back to them. That made sense. That made sense. Hey, so the courts struck down the tariffs, and now the government is going to give money back to corporations. And they're not going to lower the prices. They're going to keep the prices high. We paid the tariffs because they raised the prices when they started paying tariffs. And they're going to get the refund and get to keep the prices high. Wow. But there's a twist. There is a twist in all of this. There's a funky little twist in all of that. That's not the end of the story. Check it out.
Like, yay! No. The corporations just robbed you. And guess what? They're not going to lower the prices now that the tariffs are gone.
Are you following the bouncing ball? Howard Lutnick designs a system of tariffs to tax companies in America. An illegal tariff tax. They get taxed, pay in these millions. Trump says it's billions, but it's illegal. So the courts are going to overturn it. So before the court, Lutnick knows it's illegal. He created it. So before the courts turn it over, he has his sons run out and buy up the debts for like 20 to 30 cents, not the debt, the claim against the government. So let's say a company paid $1 million to the government in tariffs. Lutnick's own sons went and said, we'll give you 200 to 300,000 of that million now. You no longer have a lien against the government in case we find out that those tariffs were illegal. Those tariffs that my dad designed were illegal. Then the Supreme Court says the tariffs are illegal, and Lutnick's sons now go collect the $1 million back from the government. So instead of...
Now, that's the killer. That's the killer. No, they're not going to pay the money back to the people because we the ones that always get screwed. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, designed the tariffs in the first place. And he knew they was illegal. They knew it was illegal. They knew the Supreme Court would strike it down. They designed the tariffs so the corporations pay the tariffs. The corporations raise the prices to us. Now, if the Supreme Court strikes the tariffs down, the government has to pay the money back to the corporations. But the Lutnicks was slick. Him and his sons and another group of slick willies went out to the corporations and said, hey, we'll pay you a percentage of what you paid out. In return, you won't have a claim if it's found out to be illegal. You give me, okay, the company pays $1 million. So they're out of $1 million in tariffs. Lutnick and his group go to the company and say, hey, check this out. We'll give you $300,000 in exchange for your claim on that million. If it turns out sometime later on that it's illegal. Well, most companies, especially struggling companies that have cash flow issues, would love to take that deal. Yeah, I'll take that deal. Give me the $300,000. I'll put that back in my pocket, and I'll give you, hey, I'll give you the lien on that million I had to pay out. So now, Lutnick, his sons, and his boys, they got all of these IOUs for the government. When the government starts paying them IOUs, it's all going to Lutnick and his group. And guess, the Trump family is involved in the flim flam. They getting a percentage. The Lutnick and his group, they getting the IOUs for the tariffs when the government has to pay it back. Scam of the century. And we get stuck holding the bag. We get stuck holding the bag. Nobody's going to pay us the tariffs we paid. There's no record of the tariffs we paid. We didn't pay any tariffs. We just got the high price at the grocery store. We just got the high price at the car lot. We just got the high price at Best Buy. That's all. That's any record I got. I don't have any record saying I paid a tariff. The corporations had a record that they paid the tariff. They paid it straight to the government. They got it in writing. I paid the United States $1 million in tariff money. Here's my IOU. Government, you owe me $1 million. Lutnick went and bought the IOUs for pennies on the dollar. All of these millions of dollars that the government about to pay back is going to go right into Lutnick's pocket and his group. And we stand around with our thumb up our ass. I tell you, these people, You know, there's a phrase I used to hear. Uh, there was a book I read when I was young. It's called A Tale of Two Cities. I forget who the author was, but it's always stuck in my mind. And it describes what was going on back in France uh, during the time when the aristocracies were about to be um, run over. There's a phrase from those times, and it was called storming the Bastille. Well, that's what needs to happen here. We need to storm the Bastille. Um, there needs to be an upheaval. There needs to be an upheaval here. And this Epstein thing might just be it. Because, you know, it's turning out that so many people were screaming at the top of their lungs for years. It's turning out to be true. All them things we thought was just conspiracy shit about the Jews running everything. I don't know how many people thought that that was true. I had made up my mind that that was just conspiracy stuff. I wouldn't have never thought. It wouldn't have never occurred to me that you could have a commerce secretary design a plan that he knows is illegal to make a big money grab, knowing it's going to get overturned and he'll be able to grab the cash. Oh, Charles Dickens. Yeah, that's right. You know what? I was about to say Charles Dickens, but I didn't want to be incorrect. Yeah, Charles Dickens wrote Tale of Two Cities. And if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. Excellent book. I didn't think, back then I didn't think it would stick, but it stuck. But we got a group in this administration. Now you got Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is the guy that's drafting this illegal scam. Scott Bessent, the Treasury guy, the Treasury Secretary. Him and his group is buying all the farmers off the farmers' land right out from under them. The farmers, they're bankrupting the farmers so they can steal the land from them for pennies on the dollar. This group of scam artists that we got in D.C. running the government, they're literally rape, robbing, and pillaging the entire country. They rape, robbing, and pillaging. And the smokescreen is Stephen Miller's Gestapo running around on the street fucking with people. Hey, don't look at all of this theft we got going on over here. Look at all of that damn smoke and mirrors we got over there. All these people running around on the streets fucking with people that are not committing crimes. Oh, we got 700 criminals out of the thousands you've been fucking with. This is insane. Absolutely insane. There needs to be an upheaval. Yep, needs to be an upheaval. We'll take it up a little bit more next week. I'm going to cut it right here because I'm getting pissed. I feel my blood pressure going up. So we'll pick this up. Monday. But if you get a chance, check out Julian Dory's podcast, Julian Dory, on YouTube. That young man got people coming on his platform that are explaining stuff in ways you wouldn't even believe it. Very interesting. Next week, we're going to go into some more of this Israel stuff because there's so much tied into this Epstein thing. It's got so many tentacles going in so many directions that it's like, wow. Anyway, you all have a good one. I'm going to get out of here and call it a day. I will see y'all Monday. Be safe the rest of this week. Next week is March. Hey, yes, Carmen, you have a good weekend yourself. And we'll see you then. Take it easy.